Excited to get game week going, game week prep. Camp kind of came to end last week for us. I thought we had a really good football camp in terms of physicality, practice, enduring the heat. Really pleased with how hard our guys have worked and strained. It's not easy to be a football player in the fall because you don't get to do much but practice every day for 3 to 4 hours in the heat, and school's not here, people aren't on campus, and all that's changed now. So I'm pleased with what our guys have done up to this point. We're certainly not completely ready for Oregon. We shouldn't be. We've got other things to do to get ready for it. We've got a lot of situational football to get ready for, but I'm pleased with where we are, and it's time to lock in and finish up the prep. We got started last week, probably a little bit Wednesday, a little bit Thursday, and then all in Friday, Saturday, Sunday off, and then getting back to the grind today for the players. So we know we've got a really good program. Mario Cristobal's a good friend of mine, and he's done a great job recruiting players to Oregon, and Dan has taken those guys and watching what they did in the spring game and knowing the intensity and the organization that Dan has and the leadership. They're going to be a hell of a team, and they've got a lot of good football players on their team. With that, I'll open it up.
You raise your hand, we get a floor microphone to you.
Kirby, before you hired Dan as promoted Dan as your defensive coordinator, you mentioned that he'd done some out-of-the-box things that impressed you. And as long as you were a defensive coordinator, I wonder what would be out of the box, because I can't imagine there weren't many things you hadn't seen before you promoted Dan. But what are some of the things that make him, such an effective coach, and why you think Oregon, saw him out to coach their program?
Well, I think the first part of that is I had a great relationship with Dan when he worked at the University of Alabama, and had a lot of respect for the way he went about his job. He didn't try to be somebody he wasn't. He didn't try to impress people. He just worked and he grinded, and he really did a good job of just doing what you asked him to do. And I always thought he would be successful. He helped recruit while he was there, and when we had a job come open, it was I think Kevin Sherry ended up leaving, and it ended up being a no-brainer for us to bring Dan in, because I knew the value he had, number one, of knowledge, number two, of being around me. I was very comfortable with him, and he had more experience. So then when we had an opportunity to hire him as coordinator, I knew he was going to do a great job. Schumann was here at that time as well, and he and Schumann were really neck and neck the whole time, and both took on responsibilities. Dan would be the first to tell you he would have never had the success here he had it not been for Glenn Schumann. And that's what made the transition easier when Dan left, was the fact that it felt comfortable that Glenn would be able to take it over and do it along with Will. So it's always great when you got two guys that know the system and two guys that can share that responsibility.
Hey Coach, just wanted to ask, how has the depth of receiver affected preparation heading into the season opener, and have the freshmen impressed you enough to have you confident in them if their number is called?
Yeah, I think a lot can be made about depth at any position. There's never enough depth. I mean, you asked me one fall camp, we've been here for 7 of them. I can't sit here and tell you that we've had enough at any position, because as a coach, you concern yourself with reps, volume of reps. How do I get enough work? How does each player get enough work? And receivers no different than O-line or D-line or defensive backs. It's just you got a certain number of guys. We got the same number of guys there we've had pretty much every camp. So I don't know that there's a major concern for depth there. It's more staying healthy. We've had guys dinged up in every camp I've ever been here. And to be honest with you, we look at it every year, and every year it's about the same. We've got the same number of soft tissues, same number of hamstrings and things, and it's kind of been that way this year. So I'm comfortable with where our guys are. We've got some young guys that are going to probably have to play and help us in the 2 deep. But if you're going to do it at a position, the position to do it at is receiver, because those guys tend to be able to have success at an early age.
Kirby, there's obviously been a lot of talk this offseason about how many defensive players you lost. From the defense you see today, where are those guys at in your mind, and how good can they be?
Where are they right now? They're inexperienced, young, and hopefully talented as we think they are players. At some positions more talented than others, but they're in need of playing a game. And I guess you could say that's experience, right? So they're in need of experience, but more so than experience, they need to play in a game. They need good things to happen and reaffirm their good habits. And some of them need maybe something adverse to happen and see how they respond. Because I've never coached a defensive player that didn't give up a play or get beat. So how are they going to respond to that in a game atmosphere? Because it happens every day in practice. But how are they going to respond to that in a game atmosphere? I don't know if we know that yet. And that's going to be the resiliency factor of where is this group? Because I don't think you really know until you go out in the game and have to execute it in front of the fans and against a really good opponent.
Kirby, with this Oregon team, obviously staff turnover from last year, I think they've had like 11 transfers in. Just with that much that has changed from the 2021 season, what's the challenge like trying to prepare for a team like that?
Well, some unknowns. You know, you're just trying to gather information. You're trying to figure out where the pieces are going to be, where's this guy going to play, and who's going to play. But that's for us to worry about as coaches, because for the players, we're worried about what we got to do. You know, if I execute my assignment, what does it matter who's across from me? I'm not getting into the details of where he was at last year. I don't care where he was at last year. I'm worried about what I got to do to execute. But we as coaches certainly like to know about personnel and matchups, and the game within the game is to try to get a good matchup somewhere out there. And matchups are easier to find when you know the team inside and out, like let's say an SEC team we play every year. It's pretty easy to try to figure out where your matchups are. Probably a little tougher in this situation of not knowing your opponent, and even the tape you have of the opponent may not be exactly what they're doing. So that creates an interesting dynamic, but it's not for our players to concern themselves with.
Coach, what have you seen out of Stetson Bennett in this camp, and was it what you were looking for?
Consistency, leadership, the things that you want your quarterback to be in terms of confidence, coachable, and understanding how to use the offense to help you. I think, you know, anytime you got a guy that's been in a meeting room for 2 and 3 years under the same system, it helps. But the reps help more than just the meeting room experience. You know, he's taken more reps with the ones. He's gotten more quality work against, you know, the best we got to offer. He gets to go against the best we've got every day, and I think that has helped his growth. I'm very pleased with what he's been asked, what he's done, and what he's been asked to do. And you know, we need him to play well. We need him to play well because he's a veteran player now.
You mentioned some unknowns, trying to find information. That Dan's not announcing his starting quarterback. Obviously, you're familiar with the guy that's the favorite. I mean, how does that impact, you know, them not saying this is our guy?
That really doesn't impact anything for us. I mean, I know who the quarterback's going to be, so I'm not worried about that. I'm worried a lot more about how our guys play and what our guys do and how our guys execute. You know, you guys use that to write about and talk about, but I mean, let's be honest, regardless of which quarterback's in there, they're going to do what they do. And maybe he does one thing better than the other guy does, and you know, at the end of the day, they may play both of them, but it's never about the preparation for one specific quarterback as much as it is the preparation of your team to go play well.
Kirby, when you're facing a guy that was on your staff for the last 4 years, what's the level, like a strategic level, you know, the familiarity that you both have with each other? Does that affect kind of game planning or anything, or do you try to change things up? And also just on a personal level to see, you know, I guess it shows some success, obviously, of your program, to now find a guy, I'm sure you're proud of him, to be a head coach now.
Yeah, on a personal level, I don't think the game has anything to do with that, and neither Dan nor I will be worried about each other during the game. It's not about that. He's fighting to do the best job he can for his organization and his players, and I'm doing the same here. We have mutual respect for each other, always will, always have. And just, you know, that's what competition's about. You know, you love to go compete, and it's about our players getting a chance to compete against their players. As far as the familiarities of the two systems, you know, there probably is a little overlap there in terms of, you know, defense, and you know, they're watching our defense and we watch our defense to get ready for them. But they've got coaches on their staff from other places. We've gone out and looked at the history of their other defensive coaches for ideas and things they've done at other places. And at the end of the day, it's about how you execute. It's not about X's and O's. It's about who's got the best players and do the best players play the best in the biggest moments.
Yeah, Kirby, Cedric was talking about Michael Williams, and he's getting more comfortable learning from these older guys and everything. I guess, one, how much have you seen him learning from those guys, and two, how far has he come, in this fall camp since he's been here?
He's continued to grow. I think since he got here, he's been a non-traditional freshman. He's never been really impacted by accolades, hype, even intimidation by being here in terms of drills and knowing what to do. He's fit in really naturally. I think being from where he's from, Columbus, he got up here to so many practices. It was just a very steady climb, and he's continued to climb. He's not had ups and downs and lack of efforts and tired and not understanding. He takes really good care of his body. He's very intelligent. He learns the system well, and he plays really hard. And those are attributes that help true freshmen get on the field.
Yeah, Kirby, just wondering about an injury update on guys like Andrew Paul, Tyke Smith, Kyrus Jackson, Tate Ratledge, Ernest Green, and Denylin Morissette.
Yeah, I don't know if I can hit all those. Andrew obviously had a tough situation in scrimmage towards ACL, which all you guys know. He'll be undergoing surgery, I think tomorrow or the next day, to repair his ACL. Tate's been back practicing, doing a great job. Kyrus been back practicing ever since the scrimmage. Denylin's been back practicing ever since the second scrimmage. You have to remind me, anybody else?
Tyke Smith.
Tyke's practiced all camp, so he's continued to practice.
Kirby, can you kind of talk about the competition at the nickel position as well as punter? Kind of the guys there. Do you know who your guys are?
Yeah, our guys are Brett and Noah, and our guys are Tyke and Bullard at the Star, along with Poole. So all those guys are doing a great job. Probably play all those guys at punter. We'll make a decision closer to the game, but Brett's probably the leader in terms of punting. But really pleased with the work of all those guys, and expect them to. We say you're a starter here when you start on special teams, so all those guys will have a starting role.
Kirby, considering all the different moving parts on the defensive line, and you're only facing a team that may have the most experienced offensive line you got will face this year, what about that challenge come Saturday?
Yeah, I think that we face a really good offensive line day in and day out, and very experienced one in our own, and that provides a lot of good competition. I think they've got more returning starters, returning snaps than almost anybody in the country on their offensive line. So it certainly is a strength in terms of even what Mario's history is of recruiting offensive linemen. Did a tremendous job putting together depth at that position. So it'll be key that we play well, we play physical. You have to control the line of scrimmage and strike people to be a good football team. They know that. Dan knows that. There's nothing hidden about that. So our defensive line's got to stop the run and be able to control the quarterback, which, depending on which quarterback it is, you got some really good athletes back there.
Hey, Coach. Cedric called Zion Lowe one of the best leaders on this defense. Can you speak a little bit to what you've seen out of him this offseason taking on a leadership role? Consistency.
Zion's a guy that's been a kind of a product of our environment, culture, I might say. He's seen leaders before him. He certainly had a long way to go when he got here. He never shied away from work. He's been very consistent in his work. He's worked really hard to earn the opportunity he's gotten. I think he'd be the first to tell you there's things he can do better. He's not the guys that we played with last year, but he's a great leader, and he makes up for what he may or may not have in complete talent with effort, toughness, all the things we think are quality leadership things, and he continues to do that.
How important is it for you guys to have success with your tight ends in this game, especially given the talent that Oregon has at that inside linebacker room?
I don't know the relative question to the what does the tight end success have to do with their inside linebackers?
Well, just the matchup there between the two, and how important is it for your tight ends to win that respective matchup?
Again, I don't know how much they'll be matched up on those guys. Those guys are inside, and the tight ends are outside. So I don't usually look at it as a matchup between tight ends and inside backers. It could be a matchup where one of them's blocking one of them, one of them might be covering them, but it might be a DB too. Are they going to play nickel? Are they going to play regular? Those are all questions that are going to be answered today at the game. But they have a tremendous tremendously talented inside linebacker room. I mean, both two kids we recruited here and tried to get here, and we had some pretty good inside linebackers when they decided to come, and we felt strongly enough they were good enough to come here and play. So they're talented. Our tight ends are really good football players. They're conscientious. They work hard. We need them to be successful regardless of who we play because they're good players, and good players got to play well. But I think it'd be misleading to think that there's like this kind of like matchup where it's this guy against this guy, because I don't foresee that.
Kirby, can you give us an update on the offensive guards? You said Tate Ratledge was back. Can you kind of let us know where that stands, and have you picked your starting five on the offensive front?
No, I don't think we'll know till this week gets up. I mean, you're coming off a day where we didn't do anything, and they practiced Friday and Saturday with all of them sharing time with the ones. I mean, that's not going to change all year. I know you guys want to make it, and that's all you want to know is who's going to start. But there's a group of guys there between Devin, Jared, Tate, and Trust that all roll through there. Micah gets reps, Dylan gets reps, and Warren Erickson's reps some at guard. So it's not a matter of, okay, it's going to be these two guys. It's going to be the guys that play the best and who practice the best. And right now we haven't made the decision of who's going to take the first snap so that everybody can talk about who took the first snap. We're going to look at it and say, okay, who's playing the best in the game and gives us the best opportunity.
Kirby, I've got a non-starter question, I guess. Captains, how do you guys decide the captains? I know last year you had like 18 different game captains. I think only 4 of them are back. And then as far as the leadership council, has that been a consistent in terms of the process, or have you done anything different with either of those two areas?
No, we pick game captains by week, and it usually has to do with who we think can infect the team or who maybe that week has to have the best leadership role. I mean, we played South Carolina, and Channing Tindall was a captain because he's from South Carolina, and it would mean more to him, and being from that state. I mean, there's no rhyme or reason. It usually has something to do with who do the coaching staff, strength staff, player development staff think will impact that game the most. But everybody's a leader every game, right? You got a right to say whatever you feel like saying. So it usually comes from, for the first game, off-season workouts and camp, kind of who had the camp and who was the guy that everybody could count on to be there on that day that's 100 degrees and you're practicing for the 15th time. So we don't base it on a whole lot early. We base it on the fact that you're a good leader and everybody has an opportunity to lead. So that's usually, I don't remember the second part of the question.
The leadership council.
Yeah, the leadership council really was, we've done it every year we've been here, but we didn't do it since the Cincinnati game. It's been more of our skull sessions have been the emphasis, and spending time with each other and kind of all sharing in that responsibility and not making it like it's an isolated group. I still rely on leaders to make some decisions, and we have guys that we kind of consider that, but it's not a designated leadership council.
2 more questions?
Yeah. You've said before you like playing in this game, the Chick-fil-A kickoff game. Can you just talk about why that is? And do you even have an opportunity with the craziness going on in college football reconfiguration to visit whether you want to get Oregon on a future schedule and maybe go out there to Autzen Stadium?
Yeah, I love playing in this game because, number one, it's in Atlanta. Number two, I like playing in it because I think they do a tremendous job. It's an unbelievable venue. Your hope is you're back in the stadium and you've gotten a chance to play in it once already when it comes to the SEC championship game. So that has a lot to do with it, but just in general, I think playing a big-time opponent opening, whether that's home, whether that's neutral site, that I just think it fires up your fan base, it fires up your all-season workouts. And some people do it, the second game of the year. To me, it's a great opportunity to go out and schedule opponents that get your fan base and your team excited to play. So that's, when we scheduled this one a while back, we knew the kind of team that Oregon was going to have, and we expect to have that same kind of team. So it makes for a great matchup.
A couple more special teams questions, Coach. As far as consistency, you're seeing at kicker right now, just kind of what you've seen from there. And also with Andrew Paul's injury, does that at all give you pause maybe to use Kenny as Bud, the kickoff returner?
Not really. We've kind of had our kickoff return guys lined up as far as who we think are going to do it all along. So it hasn't included Kenny because Kenny was one of the primary backs where last year he was sharing that load. But he's still kickoff return weapon and a guy that we can use when we need to. But the kicking has been, Pod's done a great job. You know, Pod's been very consistent in terms of, he comes to work every day. He has a routine he believes in. He and Zerk are battling for the kickoff spot. He'll probably be the field goal guy, barring anything happening between now and then. But very pleased with, you know, Pod's focus and his consistency. Really all the specialists, they have a unique group and they kind of work on a different schedule than us a lot of times. And I'm very pleased with where they are.
Thank you.
Kurt.